So welcome everybody to today's session. As we all know, this is World Food Safety Month. And the theme for this year has a very interesting name, from burden to solutions. Yes, safe food everywhere. We always complain about the burden around food safety, but this year we've been challenged to not see it as a burden, but to look around us and find solutions. And that's what inspired this webinar to talk about what are some of the burdens we are facing and how best can we solve them. Because this year, the FAO and WHO released new statistics of foodborne illnesses. I hope we've seen that. Have we seen the new statistics? Yes, it tells us that about 866 million illnesses every year, and then we face about 1.52 million deaths. Interestingly, Africa bears about 60% of this burden, which makes this webinar very timely. And Blaise has worked with FAO before, so he can give us more insights even on that. So I'm just going to hand over the mic back to my lovely speakers. That is Molly Gile and Blaise. You said Blaise Ouattara. Ouattara. Hey, nice. So you can tell us more about you. I'll hand over the mic to Blaise, and then Molly will go next.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think that this is timely when we talk about food safety. And if you look at the different World Food Safety Days since the beginning, we have been going through different themes from things like food safety, everyone business, to food safety and science, and food safety and standard. And this year is the burden, how to move from the burdens on food safety to sustainable solutions. I think that this is a very good opportunity for us on this platform to discuss and talk about some of the issues that we are facing in Africa. I think that we have a lot of challenges. We have a lot of different situations. Africa is big. We have countries that are doing quite well on food safety. We also have some countries that are in the beginning stage. And even in the same country, we have the importance of the informal sector. All these put us in a situation where, as a food safety officer or food safety people working in the food industry, there are quite many challenges. I think that the good thing is that we have solutions. We have a lot of solution knowledge and from the international institutions, codex, standards, but we also have some challenges when it comes to the implementation of these solutions. And this is where a platform like this gives the opportunity to bring people from different backgrounds, different experiences to share. And I am expecting that during this forum, it will not be only Molly and myself sharing knowledge. So I think that it will be an open discussion where we will be able to talk about different things and also learn about the attendees to this forum. So I am really expecting to have a good discussion during this forum and also share experiences from my side. So I will have the opportunity to touch on different aspects of the food safety, from the burden to the solutions, and some of the solutions that are more adapted to the African continent. So we will have the opportunity to touch on all these things. So I think I will stop here for now, and then I will come back later with other more precise answers. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Blaise. That is so profound. We are all here to learn from one another. So even if you registered as an attendee, your opinions are also welcome because there's something you know that some of us also don't know about. Molly, I'm handing over the mic to you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I hope I'm still audible.
Very much audible.
I think Dr. Blaise has done a wonderful job in contextualizing this discussion and conversation today, and also just putting into perspective what the previous years have looked like in terms of World Food Safety Day theme. So my name is Molly Abende. I am a food safety practitioner for quite some time now. I think why myself and Dr. Blaise will probably form a good panel and balance in terms of speakers is Dr. Blaise has a broad experience with non-governmental organization, while I bring a lot of experience from the manufacturing sector. So I am currently the head of quality assurance and food safety at Kenyan manufacturing company called Glacier Products Limited. We specialize in dairy products such as ice cream. We are currently the largest manufacturers of ice cream in East Africa, and also the only large manufacturer of chocolates in East and Central Africa as well. Previously, I've been in the fruits and vegetable industry, and I have experience in both local, regional, and exports markets. And I'm excited about today's conversation. I think, as Catherine and Dr. Blaise have said, it's really going to be an interactive session because all of us are in the different sectors of the food supply chain, and we all have different parts to play when it comes to food safety. So I definitely look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Molly. And while we are on it, just hold the mic there, because I'm going to pose the very first question, which is quite open. What prevents organizations from acting on what they already know about food safety risks? Like we know them.
I think, this is a safe space, I see majority of the attendees are actually food safety practitioners. So my answer to that would be there's a multiple number of issues that can contribute to numerous issues happening again and again in an organization. And I think the first one that I'd like to start with is companies focusing on food safety or even quality as a compliance issue rather than an imperative business function. And this looks like organization really putting a lot of efforts into passing audits as opposed to embedding food safety into the day-to-day business operations. And what this looks like is that now they don't look at food safety from a risk perspective and focusing on managing risks on a day-to-day basis. They look at food safety as compliance and an audit event, which means some of these things, despite audit citations, despite non-conformities, despite customer complaints, they keep recurring over and over again, and which also goes ahead and speaks to culture. To the extent that, food safety is still a compliance issue or is still looked at as a department in an organization, then you find that culture, right, is not well built within the organization. This means that issues will keep repeating themselves in different parts of the supply chain. And on top of that, there's generally some companies that do lack resources, right? That to the extent an auditor comes in and tells you that your company or the current infrastructure is not suitable for manufacturing or food production, companies that may, small businesses, micro businesses, micro enterprises, it might not be possible to put up infrastructure that is required to be able to produce safe food. So there's some instances where resources come into play, but majority of the cases, it is an issue of commitment, it's an issue of culture, and it's an issue of, companies focusing more on, we are certified, we pass the audit, as opposed to building a culture and embedding food safety into every facet of the business.
Nice. You're going to talk more about culture as we proceed with the webinar. Dr. Blaise, please chip in on that.
Yes, sure, I will, but I think allow me to introduce myself. I think I missed this one a little bit at the beginning before I come to the question. So for the audience, I am recently retired from a Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, now working as an independent expert and consultant. So I used to be the regional food safety officer for Africa, supporting countries on different food safety, food system issues, like the strengthening of national food control system to laboratory system to Codex Alimentarius and SPS issues. So this was basically what I've been doing during the last 8 or so years. So previously, I've been involved in scientific advice at HQ in Rome, and before that, I have a food safety officer at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So coming to this question, I think this is an important one because it goes to the heart of the issue when we talk about knowledge and food safety. I think I would say that clearly the problem is not now the knowledge, because the knowledge, we have standards, we have guidelines, we have a lot of scientific evidence, and we also have some decade of experience. The real issue with food safety is between knowledge and implementation. I think that it is on the implementation aspect that we have some issues. In many countries in Africa, food systems are well designed on paper, but when it's come to implementing, then we have several problems. And few things that I would like to highlight. One is the important factor is the diversity of food system. I mean here the importance of informal market in Africa. A lot of people in many countries of Africa, they get their food from the street. And the street vendor, they cannot be managed as in the same way as the formal food business operator. That means that we need to have a special approach to this informal sector to bring them progressively in the formal sector, where we can monitor them and where we can also work with them to improve the food safety. So this is one aspect. A second aspect is the question of coordination. In many countries, we have food safety that is held and managed by different government institutions, going from agriculture to health to trade. So we really need a well-coordinated system. And this is not present everywhere. I think this is one of the lack also that we have that prevent many countries to have a good food safety system. So, and finally, I think that Molly mentioned the aspect of culture. I will also bring the aspect of the associations working in the food handling. So which need to have some particular training to bring them on board so that the knowledge that is created can be used efficiently to get the best of the food safety support in the countries. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Blaise. I'm going to go back to Molly. Molly, Why do you think when I come to audit your farm, I'm not speaking about your current farm, yes, but if I come and find there are non-conformities, the next time I come, I find the same non-conformities. Like, why does this keep on recurring? Why do these food safety issues keep on recurring?
I think it's the question relates to the first question, Catherine.
Yeah.
Some of these risks that have been persistent over time.
Yeah.
And I think it really goes to the conversation around looking at food safety as a compliance requirement as opposed to a business imperative and part of something that the company looks at as we are protecting the consumer, consumers who pay us, and consumers who sustain this business. So to the extent that that continues to be the mindset in the food industry, then it will be a challenge. And sometimes even auditors, you might come to an organization and actually you don't find any non-conformities. And I think that is even the scariest situation, because it means they have perfected the showcase. Yeah, you find that in most organizations during audits, half the staff is sent at home. There's very few lines that are running to demonstrate compliance. All the records are filled to perfection. You know, all the staff that day they've been given new white lab coats. So I think to the extent that the industry continues to look at this as simply compliance, simply something that KEBS requires, something that UNBS is requiring, something like that NAFDAC is requiring in Nigeria, then we'll keep having these issues recur. And in most cases, not many organizations are transparent with the food safety issues that are actually occurring in the organization. What actually, gives you a red flag is normally when KEBS is flagging a particular company, or when the regulatory authority is saying this has high mycotoxin, this has been found contaminated with this.
Yeah.
That is when you suddenly hear a certain brand is in the market. So I think, as Dr. Blaise has mentioned, there's a lot of coordination that is needed overall to be able to help us really demonstrate that we can consistently offer safe food to our consumers across the supply chain. And I think as globalization occurs, it means that local, food safety issues can quickly turn into multi-country issues, because cocoa that is produced in Ghana, it is processed and packaged maybe in Indonesia, then it comes back to Kenya or African countries for processing into other different products. So you find that the global supply chain is really, really big, but these issues will continue to recur unless all the players within the supply chain, not only manufacturers, because you realize if only manufacturers are doing their job and suppliers are not doing it, and farmers are not, taking care of the raw material, then the supply chain is still broken and we'll still end up with food that is not safe for our consumers. So it needs to be a focus of, audits and inspection and regulatory to still apply across the supply chain. Can we still audit farmers? Can we still audit manufacturers? Can we audit retailers? How many of us know a certified retailer? Yeah, majority of our food is dispatched from factories, and it goes into the Carrefours, the Naivases, the different marts and different retailers across the continent. But how many of them are actually trained to enforce food safety at that last mile before the customer takes the product home? So I think the work not only lies in any one part of the supply chain, it needs to be consistently enforced from farm to fork to ensure that consistently we can ensure that the person who ends up with the food on their plate is actually consuming safe food.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that, Molly. As we always say, food safety is everyone's responsibility. Now, on to Dr. Blaise. We already know that we know these issues. So what I'm going to ask you is, what are some of the biggest barriers that prevent countries and organizations from translating the knowledge they already have into meaningful action?
Yes, I think this is a very interesting question. So when it comes to these barriers, we often look at them in the global national food control system. I think there are many of issues, many challenges that at the end become barriers for preventing countries to translating food safety knowledge into actions. I think one of them is a fragmentation of governance. I think I already mentioned that earlier, that many countries have lack of coordination. Several agencies are involved and doing food safety activities, but many times they are not talking to each other, and there is a lot of overlap, and there is a lot of duplication, and people are doing sometimes the same thing, and sometimes even conflicting things. So I think this is one very important aspect that is holding people back from having a very strong food safety capacity. The second one is capacity constraint. Effective food system require infrastructure, and this is very important from laboratory, from surveillance system, trained inspectors. Many issues are related to this infrastructure. For example, if you are not able to test a product, it's very difficult to be able to identify what are the main food safety issues. So laboratory is very important. And we also look at the human capacity. I was mentioning the inspectors in number and capacity, but there is a one important function. This is the scientific aspect of food safety. We talk specifically about risk assessment. And risk assessment is the basis of the food control system. And in many African countries, this is a very weak aspect of the food safety. So capacity is really one thing where we need to put a lot of effort from now to the coming years. And the third one, I would say it is the approach itself. We are not ready to do risk-based inspection, risk-based decision making. We are still relying on the reactive way of doing things, waiting for the issue to happen and correcting it. Now, food safety is moving toward a more risk-based approach where we work mostly on the preventive aspect of food safety. And this is through systems like HACCP, risk analysis, and so on. And this is also something that is very important, that is holding back a lot of organizations at the industry level, but also at the national level. The good thing is that the FAO and WHO have put in place a tool that we call the National Food Control Evaluation tool that allow different countries to look at their food safety system and really know what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths, and also to develop an implementation strategy, short term, medium term, and long term. And these look at basically several components, starting from the regulatory aspect, to the inspection capacity, to the interaction with the other stakeholders, and this is basically the trade aspect. And one last aspect is also the scientific aspect to risk assessment. So this tool is available at the country level, but when we say country level, we also understand that one role of the national authority is to work and provide all this information to and guidance to the food industry and the food business operators. So basically, these are some of the barriers that I like. There are many of them, but this is, in my sense, the most important. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Blaise. Before you hand it over to me, you mentioned something very important there, that we are not ready for this risk assessment step. We are not ready to go the preventive way. What will take us to get ready?
I think what will take us to get ready is first.
You're muted, Dr. Blaise.
So
you're muted again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now you can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. So what I'm saying is that what would take us there is, first of all, to recognize that we have the problem. And this starts from the authorities. They need to be engaged, and they need to accept and support the process. Because this is very important, because some of them, they don't see the importance of science. So we have to convince them, we have to do some kind of promotion to the senior management. And then the second aspect is to be able to develop capacity development, scientific capacity in the different countries, and to also have the structure of the government to have a risk assessment unit that can be able to do the scientific activities. And one thing also that is very important is data generation, because we can do risk assessment because we have enough and quality data. So if we want to move from where we are now to a risk-based approach, we also need to have a capacity to generate a data and quality data. So this is very, very important. And this comes to also the laboratory capacity. If you don't have good laboratory, we will not be able to generate data. So it is basically a lot of different issues that are very interconnected. But if we have the political will, then we can be able to address all these elements from the easiest to the more complicated.
Thank you for the amazing insights, Dr. Blaise. I have quite a lot of follow-up questions, but let me just go to Molly for the next question. Molly, so if you're in an organization, you're still new there, but then you discover that the food safety culture is weak. What would it take now to strengthen it? How would you approach changing this weak food safety culture to becoming a very mature one?
I think, Catherine, for majority of the attendees, I believe this was one of the most inquired areas of food safety.
Yeah.
Food safety culture is becoming more and more pronounced as we continue to evolve when it comes to food safety maturity globally. And when we speak about food safety culture, we are looking at behaviors, we're looking at attitudes, we're looking at their unspoken rules within an organization. And in the recent times, any company that is certified against any GFSI standards might be BRC, FSSC, SQF, among others. Food safety and quality culture is now becoming an actual requirement to be able to demonstrate that you can actually demonstrate that you have food safety and quality culture in your organization. And this has become important because a lot of systems and certification bodies realized that a company can have policies, a company can have checklists, a company can have a ton of documents, but all these have proven futile in the event and in the reality that the organizational culture does not prioritize food safety. So you can have all the policies in the world, and you can have all the documents in the world, but we've come to realize that to the extent that the culture in the organization does not support food safety, then it all still ends up that the consumer ends up with food that is unsafe. So in an organization, and it is many, we are still not yet there in terms of quality culture. I would say my first approach would be to look at leadership. Yeah. In any organization, leadership determines the tone and the direction of the business. So it needs to start with top management or senior management of the organization. And as a food safety professional or as a leader in that field, if you cannot convince the top management, then you probably have already failed the test. So it really needs to start with top management. And top management, they speak in numbers. That is the reality. Directors don't know CAPA. They don't understand non-conformity. They might not be able to understand E. coli. They might not understand what Clostridium is, but they will understand money. And so it means presenting food safety in monetary value, talking about food safety in customer complaints, talking about food safety in product recall, talking about food safety in brand reputation. This is a language that top management will understand. When you tie it to business goals and objectives, they are able to realize how vulnerable their business is, to the extent that they will wake up one day and their brand is in the biggest national television or is in the biggest regional regulatory authority for them to pull out their products because it has salmonella or it has E. coli. So top management, the first thing is to demonstrate to them what food safety risks mean to the business, right? Number two will now be, after you've gotten the buy-in from the leadership, that is step one. So any food safety professional who's here, if you skip step one, the system will still not be sustainable. You need now to proceed to training of top management. It starts with training. They need to understand what their role is. So by helping your MD and your CEO understand what now their role and responsibility is in developing policies to demonstrate that the company is committed, in allocating budget. You will not be able to achieve food safety without a budget. The lab analysis costs money. The gloves that you need costs money. The employees that you need in the food safety and quality department costs money. The training that you need will cost money. So once you're able to advocate to the top management, you can be able to get at least a budget allocation to be able to implement some of the things that are necessary to be able to implement food safety. The next thing will now be training for the rest of the organization. Yeah. But I think before I even go into training, something that most organizations also skip, once you're able to align with the leadership, the next thing is to review the governance structure of the food safety and quality in the organization. And this also applies at a country level, because in most organizations and most countries, food safety is left to the food safety department. And most cases, it is particularly the factory team. They believe that there's no food safety in logistics, food safety is not necessary in sales, food safety is not necessary for procurement, and that's where the rain starts beating us. So governance structures for organization have to be reviewed. And this looks like looking at food safety from farm to fork. So companies have to focus on food safety all the way from procurement to the sales team. So it looks like availing food safety professionals in the business to be able to support procurement, to be able to support production and manufacturing teams, to be able to support logistics team, and to also be able to support sales teams. So unless the organization is structured in such a way that food safety can be adopted from farm to fork, then also that training might not really work, because the factory team can work really hard to make sure that the meat is safe, the milk is safe, but once it steps out of the factory, then they are forgotten. They have forgotten what it takes. And this is actually what has led to organization investing in regional food safety, because all our distribution centers now have quality and food safety personnel, which previously people believed that quality ends at the factory. So we've been able to change this mindset significantly to be able to advocate that everyone in the supply chain needs to have training and knowledge on food safety, and governance structures in the organization need to support food safety. The second thing is that you cannot have one employee in the organization to address all the food safety issues. So you need to also empower the food safety and quality department within the organization. So once the governance issues are addressed, and also you cannot have the director of sales and a director of production, or a head of production and a head of supply chain. Then now for the quality department, you have a quality assistant. That might not work, because this person will not have the right level of authority to be able to prevent products from leaving, to put products on hold, to be able to prevent, to put products on hold, to be able to institute recalls. So food safety needs to have a similar authority in the highest office possible within the organization. That is very critical for organizations. So number two, we move to training. So you have to really now empower people with knowledge. And as Dr. Blaise has mentioned, now there's a lot of standards, there's a lot of scientific papers, there's a lot of regulatory authorities where the knowledge is actually available. And now once we get past the knowledge is implementation. So implementation needs to be risk-based, as Dr. Blaise has mentioned. So we go back to our old HACCP. Yeah, so food safety teams need to come together, and they must be multi-departmental. Please note, your organization cannot say they have a food safety team, and the food safety team is composed of the QA manager and the QA officer, or the food safety officer, and that's the end of the food safety team. The food safety team in an organization must be multi-departmental. It must consist of production, it must consist of logistics, it must consist of procurement, it must consist of the technical people. And those are the people responsible to be able to carry out a risk assessment, all the way from the materials up to the point the product ends up to the consumer. So once this risk assessment is done, you start developing a system around food safety management. Yeah. And once the system is developed, we now go to the application. Yeah. If you said now that there's a risk in water being contaminated, you need to be able to build a system, a water treatment system that will ensure that you deliver water that is not contaminated. And this is where resources come in. So remember, if you've not negotiated for resources as one of the first things, this is where your food safety journey ends, because you'll not have money for assessment, you'll not have money for lab analysis, you'll not have money to build the water treatment system. After that, you'll not need to ensure that your facility has a basic hand washing facilities, you know, so that personnel can be able to wash hands. But now this is where the implementation journey applies. And after that, we have also to empower people to report. There's organizations where you find that employees are very scared. If you're the one who reports to QA that the product has a problem, you are the Judas of the group. They will not eat lunch with you that day. Yeah. So the practicality of it is that we need to encourage food safety reporting across all levels. And I would encourage teams that are here, let food safety responsibilities sit in JDs, in job descriptions of all members and all employees within an organization. Let the food safety reporting responsibility sit in job descriptions of all employees in the organization, so that everyone feels free and feels the responsibility and ownership to report food safety issues whenever they occur. And this is the only way you can be able to protect the supply chain across. Whether somebody is in the market, whether somebody is in procurement, they are empowered and encouraged to actually report and speak on food safety issues. And you see, now once all this is done, you invest in audit systems. Audit your system periodically, continuously, for purposes of continuous improvement. No one gets it right in the first go. It never happens like that. Food safety is not a destination, it's a journey. Continuously, every day, you work on making sure the hand washing is done, equipments are cleaned, testing is done, environmental testing programs are implemented, risk assessment is reviewed at least annually, and when there's changes, you ensure that this is reviewed. And I think the last thing I'll talk about that is heavily neglected is something we call reward and recognition. So once all this work is done, we reward the salespeople for achieving sales targets, we reward the production people for achieving sales targets, but very rarely do we reward quality or food safety performance. We rarely reward the whistleblower who was able to save us from a recall. So organizations equally need to invest in reward and recognition for food safety champions across the organization. And I think once you build a holistic system, and this includes partnership with regulatory authorities, it includes partnership with your suppliers and engagement with your suppliers. It includes engagement within the organization, that the HR not only rewards the sales target and the production target, that also quality is embedded and food safety is embedded within the reward and recognition program. And I think we now start heading towards a culture of ownership for food safety and quality. Quality and food safety, is not looked at something that they are always the people who point out problems. They are always the people that hold production. They are always the people who, return products from market. But if we get into a culture where food safety is actually celebrated, and celebration influences culture more than a stick, when you're constantly beating people, nobody wants to associate with you. But once we have carrots and we have champions of food safety within an organization, then the culture becomes stronger and stronger. So I think overall, that's what I'd share with fellow professionals in this platform. Catherine, you're on mute.
Sorry, that's so profound, Molly. So we have these small organizations. They don't have this many personnel. Sometimes the resources are limited. How can they strengthen their food safety systems then?
I think for small organization, and I'm happy you asked about that, because no organization starts large, really. No organization starts large. And I had the privilege in my career to start from scratch with a company. I was previously a production and quality manager, and I hired the first 8 employees in that particular factory, and really it was a small business, and we grew it over time to be a medium to large enterprise. So when you're starting out, truly resources are not disposable. There's competing business priorities. You're required to buy raw material, you're required to buy packaging, you're required to pay employees, you're required to pay rent. So there's competing business needs for any small enterprise. So at that particular stage, I would say, at the very least, please have competent personnel. Despite an organization being small, at least ensure you have one competent personnel. It could be a food scientist, it could be an analytical chemistry personnel, to be able to support the business on the technical matters, somebody who can lead the business in HACCP assessment, So for a small business, it might mean you're able to afford to train one person in the organization to go for ISO 22000 training, to go for HACCP training. In a bigger organization, a group of 10 people, 20 people can be sponsored for the training. In a small business, it might be one. So during my early days, I would ensure that there's one staff, it will be myself or somebody else going for the HACCP training, and then that person comes back to the organization and teaches the rest. Yeah. So the one production supervisor you have, the one procurement officer you have, because all of you can actually sit in a table and that's the whole organization. So one person is sent out for training, they come back and train the others. It also looks at, innovative ways of doing things. Yeah. It looks at, instead of maybe us buying very expensive gloves, can we validate hand washing? That maybe if we wash our hands after every 30 seconds, yeah, we can be able to demonstrate that there's no cross-contamination. It's being able to invest in the right quality of detergents, right? That, yes, we don't have too much money, but whatever money we have, can we make sure it delivers value for us so that we don't have to experience recalls, we don't have to experience product spoilages, because some of these issues, food safety issues, actually present themselves sometimes before even it goes to a customer. If you don't invest in your CIP, the yogurts will blow before it even goes to the truck. You will see them exploding in the warehouse. So it looks at small businesses investing in food safety as a core priority. They should not look at it as an afterthought. Yeah, that the CIP system, the infrastructure should support food safety, because to the extent that even small businesses, if your business is to kill your consumer, because when there's no food safety, a consumer might be harmed or they might die.
Yeah.
If it is part of your business strategy to harm that consumer, then your business has failed before it even starts. Because who will buy your product if you kill these people or you harm these people? So it needs to be part of the business strategy that as you fundraise money to build the factory, please ensure that there's money for equipment and equipment for measuring temperature and equipment for ensuring that packaging is done properly to safeguard the food. So I can say that, for small businesses, you might not take 10 people for training. You might not have millions of shillings to be able to invest in quality or food safety, but it needs to be a priority. It needs to be a priority from a resource allocation perspective, from equipping it with the necessary manpower that is needed. And then as the business grows, the more the investment should go towards food safety.
Thank you for that, Molly. Dr. Blaise, I'll prompt you on the same. What are some 2 to 3 low-cost, high-impact food safety solutions that these same small businesses, these small food processors, they can adopt immediately?
Okay, so thank you very much. And I think that I have to agree on what Molly has said, and also confirm that these are indeed the good approach. And when it comes to these small businesses, I think, as I said at the beginning, we cannot address them as we address the big food business operators. We need to have a progressive way of doing that. Because of their limitations, they are not able to develop some of the guidance material by themselves because of capacity, human resource capacity, but also a financial capacity. So one thing that needs to be done, and this is support from the government, is to be able to take all these regulatory documents, these guidelines, and put them in a format that can be easily used by the small business operators. I think that is one approach that will help the small business operators because they are not able to do them by themselves. And to strengthen that, the government can also support with training of trainers that will be able to train also other people. And this training is also very, very important. And it is not necessarily a very big training program. It could be sometime a 5-minute, 10-minute training on a specific topic. Sometimes is very enough. The secret is about repetition. Because if you don't repeat, people tend to forget, and people will come back to the usual behavior. So first thing, support from the government with the guidance material that can be used by the companies. And second, the training, capacity development training. And then I think we also have to make sure that we don't try to have all the problems solved at the same time. We have to give time to the small business operator. In many countries, when there are new regulations, they will give 1 or 2 years to the small business operators to be able to prepare and comply. And at the same time, we will add support from the government, and we will have also a support from the developing partners. And this is one thing that the developing partners are really doing. FAO, WHO, they are really working to support directly the government to be able to address the issue with the small business operators. So to summarize, I would say good guidance materials that can be used for them, and then capacity development training.
Thank you for your insights, Dr. Blaise. I'm still coming back to you. Just a note to our attendees, if you want to ask a question, kindly you can just notify us by raising your hand. Alternatively, you can also drop it in the chat. But we would love... He's up already. Should I let you ask it first, or I ask it first? I wanted to ask Dr. Blaise a question on informal markets, but Annie.
Yeah, so the question I have is, I've heard a while ago that some countries, yeah? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, yeah, to Dr. Blaise. I've heard a while ago that some countries, I think it was Senegal, Niger, Burkina Faso, and a fourth one received funding for instrumentation for the authority labs. And I wonder, I don't know exactly how long that was ago, but is there already an effect visible from the activities and the food safety development in the countries?
Okay, I think that is, yes, that is basically the kind of support that the development partners provide to the countries. I have been myself implementing some of these projects in Mali, particularly Burkina, and also Senegal, where we add support to the laboratories, and the support is in many aspects. One is capacity development of the laboratory staff on the good laboratory practices. This is one thing that is part of the support that the development partners are providing. And the second thing is to bring the laboratories to the level of accreditation. For example, for the 17025, this is a sort of accreditation that the development partners would support the laboratories to do, so that they can be able to deliver a more quality result. The very concrete example that I can give is the one from Mali, where they had a lot of equipment that were not working before because of many issues, maintenance, regions, and so on. So the project was able to rehabilitate these materials, equipment, to make it functional, so that the laboratory started to be really implementing the day-to-day food testing. So basically, I think this is something that is good. And the way it works is that as a country, the government generally make a request to the development partners like FAO or WHO, and then based on the availability of financial resources, they will be able to provide a targeted support to these laboratories. We are talking about laboratories, but many other aspects of food safety are also included in this support from the development partners.
Thank you.
Thank you. That answers your question, Annie.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Blaise. Still on that, you talk a lot about the informal food markets. There's a time I saw you talking about the informal abattoirs. So how do you think we can regulate this market? How can we ensure food safety without regulatory barriers or maybe additional costs? Because when you go to regulate these markets, the first thing is usually, oh, I'm going to buy this license. They're going to demand this kind of money. So how best can we go about this?
Yes, I think the first thing is to go. The first thing is that food safety is number one priority. So all what we do is to make sure that any food that is going to the consumer is safe. This is the principle number one. So that means that if there is no means to have a business operator to deliver safe food, then we will have to close this business. But basically in the informal market, I think that the second thing is to go gradually, because we cannot apply the same food safety management for the big food business operation to the informal market. They are very small and efficient thing that can start to bring a very good quality food. Like if you have potable water, this is something that is very important. We have the sanitation, and you have the possibility of training of these people. I think this is a good starting point, good hygienic practices, good manufacturing practices. I think when we are able to implement that, we can have a good improvement of the safety of the food. And then we can move to the next step. So this is about using very implementation measures that can easily apply. Because if you go with them to very complicated things, you want to oblige them to do HACCP. So next day you will go there, you will not see them, because they are the informal market. They don't have a specific place where they stay. If the government starts to bury them, they will just leave this place, and then you are losing something. So if you are able to put in place these simple things, the next step is to get them registered. In Ghana, for example, the FDA have developed a program for the food vendors, where they give them a registration. They register, and before they can open, they give them a basic training on food safety, on good hygienic practices and so on. And then only when they are able to put a minimum a place as a selling point, then they will have the accreditation from the government to start selling their product. So this is a way to really keep working with them, keep supporting them, because it is a very sensitive aspect, because we have more than 60–70% of the population who get their food from this informal market. We cannot close them. We cannot get rid of them. We just have to find a way to work progressively with them to bring them on the safety side. And the last thing that I would like to mention, and this is not only for the informal market, it is at a little higher level, is the availability of the regulatory document, the standard, for example. Many countries, they have standard for meat, standard for milk, for ground, for cereals, and so on. But small businesses and informal market, or mostly small businesses, they have to buy these standards. And this is a very challenge for them, because they don't have money to buy the standard. They have to apply the standard, but they cannot get them. So I think there should be a way for the government to make these important document standards available to the small business operators, so that they can easily, even if they cannot read, they will get people who can help them implement the standards.
Thank you, Dr. Blaise. So Molly, still on informal markets. We all know this is the largest market in Africa and even here in Kenya, and people love them. People love cheap things. So at some point, do you think consumers are part of the burden? Because they'll see milk that is just being sold anyhow, cheap tomatoes, those uninspected meat, and then they still buy. How can we move from this mindset to actually practice and advocate for food safety even among consumers?
I think there's some really good information and practices that Dr. Blaise has mentioned that all the countries represented can adopt, especially if there's any members from regulatory authorities, on how to bring some of this informal actors into food safety compliance. It's really impressive, the work that Ghana FDA is doing. I think majority of regulatory authorities would want to go in and, say, we are closing you down, don't open again. And they'll just open in a different spot, as Dr. Blaise has mentioned. So towards the question that you're mentioning, Catherine, is that unfortunately, the reality of food safety is that it exists in a world where poverty is real. And I think one of, the first global SDG is actually eradicating poverty. And poverty means that people have limited resources. It means that their budget is constrained against other life demands. And I remember the reality of, the reality of poverty hitting when there was a notification by the Kenya Bureau of Standards around aflatoxin, maize with aflatoxin and brands with aflatoxin, and they were removed from the supermarkets, but they still found themselves in informal markets and they were being purchased, somebody buying a whole bale for stock purposes, even if this product has been declared to be unsafe. So it really is a big challenge where poverty coexists with food safety, where somebody would rather eat, maize with aflatoxin that will affect me years later than to sleep hungry today. And that's the reality we are dealing with. I would say the first maybe starting point will be consumer education, because we use big words like aflatoxin, but how many people in the informal settlement understand what is aflatoxin and what are the implications of aflatoxin? So consumer education is something that governments, manufacturers, and key stakeholders across the supply chain can invest in, because something I realized even in the industry I'm currently in is we really look at cold chain integrity all the way from manufacturing to distribution. We have cold chain refrigerated trucks, we have cold room for distribution, but the customer will buy the ice cream in the CBD and they live in Rongai For people who are not Kenyan, it's almost, 40, I can say 10 to 30 kilometers away. And so this person doesn't realize that, the ice cream will melt within that long distance. And this might mean proliferation of bacteria and all that. So consumer education plays a big part in ensuring that customers also understand their role in food safety compliance. I think the other key stakeholder in this conversation is governments, and Dr. Blaise mentioned it. There needs to be political goodwill in countries to be able to enforce food safety. An incident that happened in Kenya, I think a while back, when we were experiencing maize shortage in the country, I think the government, tried to struggle and try and find maize to be able to give us a safety net. But unfortunately, the Kenya Bureau of Standards tested this maize and it did not meet the safety levels required for aflatoxin. But, calls were made. Yeah, it turns out it was somebody's shipment, somebody high up in the government. And unfortunately, as we hear today, those consignments were consumed in the country. So there's cases where even the government does not support the institutions it's put in place to protect consumers and to enhance food safety. So all stakeholders have a part to play, I would say that. But I think as efforts go towards eradicating poverty and consumer education, I think those will go a long way towards ensuring that, to the extent a product has been condemned, let us ensure that consumers understand in the simplest terms, why it has been condemned. If we say peanut butter has aflatoxin, what is the implication of consuming food with aflatoxin? And this can be translated even to local languages, to Swahili in case of Kenya, Tanzania, to the different languages that are there, so that consumers understand why this food is being condemned. Yeah, that would be my feedback.
Wow, thank you. We have quite a long way to go, as I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Annie?
Yeah, Molly, one question to you. You mentioned before that to convince executive level of food safety, it's necessary to talk in terms of money, which I 100% agree. The thing is just that if I think of a food safety issue, then it might end up as a loss of reputation or something. But how do I convert that properly to money? Because that is always quite a guess. While if a company has to or will introduce food safety measures, it is a very concrete cost. So how do you argue that, or what is your suggestion on how to argue these kind of things best?
So I think in terms of risks, I think in most cases, the conversation for food safety is around risk. And if you're lucky, you're speaking about them before they happen. You're only talking them as risks and not repercussions that have already occurred. So I'm grateful we are living in the era of the internet. And in most cases, what I've done personally is reference to global cases of, for example, food safety recalls that have ended up ruining companies and ended up to be very costly and led to business closure. I've had an opportunity to look at global data on what food safety implications look like in global markets. If you're exporting, a whole container can come back, and that is the cost of the business. So I think part of the discussion will be to reference existing cases, because these things have happened. Product recalls have happened. Brands being tarnished in the media has happened. So there's external reference points that a food safety professional can be able to leverage to be able to demonstrate to any executive, and in most cases, our CEOs, our managing directors, most cases, they're really not technical people, right? So it is up to us to now use real life examples to showcase how consumers are affected. So part of my food safety culture leadership package is normally starting with the global incidences, where food safety has led to very difficult and very disastrous outcomes. This is loss of human life, you know, this is loss of human life, this is loss of businesses, this is brand reputation issues. And, you know, some businesses could not recover from that, although there are some that have recovered. Yeah, so I'd say that the way I've approached it is using real life examples and using the internet and the fact that now information is readily available to practically demonstrate how real these impacts are. Yeah.
And if I can add something to that, completely agree and support what Molly has said. And another way really to, particularly for the food business operators, is to clearly show them what is the cost of prevention versus the cost of the recall, loss of reputation, and so on. It is a lot of different, putting in place good hygienic practices, cleaning equipment, and so on. It is not a big cost. But if we have a full container that is removed from the market, if you have a recall, then you will, first of all, lose a lot of money. And secondly, people will stop coming to buy from your company. So this is a big loss. So showing the cost of prevention, which is food safety, to the cost of unsafe food. So I think this is one thing, and that is mostly for the food business operators. But coming to the country level now, the government, I think this way it is about international trade,
Yes.
because this is bringing a lot of money to the countries. So if you are not able to support your food business operators, then they will not be able to comply to international trade. And now that we are getting into the African Continental Free Trade Area, that means that all the countries' governments should support their industry to put in place the good food safety practices. And I'm sure most of these government leaders, they already know about the continental food trade area that is coming. So this is, I think, a good incentive to show them what are the impact of non-safe food.
And I think, Blaise, just to add on that, as we talk about markets, I think it's also time for businesses to look at food safety as a business strategy, as a market access strategy, because there's some of these international markets that you can't access without food safety certification. So as businesses now incorporate food safety more into the business, as opposed to just looking at it from a compliance standpoint, they can look at it now as a market access strategy. And I think this can help also shift some of these top leaders, some of their mindset towards investing in food safety, if it's phrased as a business, as a market access strategy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly and Dr. Blaise. So let's prepare for the future. What are some emerging food safety risks that businesses and even regulators should prepare for in the next 2 to 5 years? Dr. Blaise? Can you hear me, Dr. Blaise? Can everyone else hear me?
I can hear you, Catherine.
Dr. Blaise, can you hear me?
I think we might have lost him.
Yeah, because I see him nodding, but then it's like he's not hearing anything. Dr. Blaise? Let's wait for him to come. As Molly, you can tell us how we can use technology, digital tools, and AI to move from reactive food safety management to more proactive and preventive approaches.
I think technology is the future, and technology plays a critical role in helping the entire supply chain in being able to uphold food safety. I would think of it from the perspective of monitoring. With improved technology, we can be able to enhance real-time monitoring. For example, a lot of equipment now is being manufactured with the ability for you to have data tracking. And like now previously where you had to have a person or a personnel allocated to monitor pasteurization temperature, we now have equipment that are already designed to be able to monitor pasteurization. And in case it does not achieve the temperatures, the product does not proceed forward. When it comes to technology as well, I see a lot of technological impact in laboratory environment or in that arena, where instead of the traditional sense of being able to wait for 7 days to get lab analysis results, we have technological advancements that is able to allow you to do rapid testing kits, which can give you indicative results, whether the surface is safe, whether the food is safe, whether the hands are clean, to be able to make evidence-based decision making. So technology will play a critical role in future to even business owners, to ensure that they have the necessary data to be able to make decisions. I also see technology playing a big part in traceability. I think globally traceability is becoming more and more important. There's companies that are investing in blockchain technology to be able to enhance traceability from farm to fork. There's other digital tools and inventory systems that are helping us enhance traceability from all the way from raw materials to finished products. So as global supply chain continue to become wider and more complex, I believe traceability becomes even more important to be able to know where did this product come from, and in case there's a contamination, how many countries or regions have been affected, and it becomes a mitigation measure. But something that I really must emphasize on is that even as we embrace digital tools and digital transformation within the food safety landscape, it does not eliminate, or it does not eradicate the other critical areas that must be done to ensure food safety. Leadership, commitment must still be there. Accountability and ownership across several actors must still be there. Complete ownership and all these other things that we discussed, culture must still be there, because technology is only a tool that enables. But if the environment and if the systems are not strong enough, if the institutions are not strong enough, then technology still might only demonstrate the inefficiencies in the system. If you want to trace a product when you didn't even record a batch number, there will be nothing to trace. So we need to strengthen systems even as we adopt technology in order to ensure that our future of food safety is bright and it's possible for us to accomplish food safety in the long term. Yeah.
Nice. Technology will mirror your inefficiencies faster than anything else. Dr. Blaise, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you now. I had some issues with internet. That's yeah.
Yes, I was asking you to help us prepare for the future. What risks should we be looking at in about 2 to 5 years? What risks should manufacturers and even regulators prepare for?
Yes, I think when we look at over the next 2 to 5 years, one key observation is that food safety risk is becoming more complex. It is more interconnected, and it is also influenced by a lot of change in the food system. So if today you consider the context of Africa with the work at the Codex Alimentarius, you will see that year after year, there are some emerging issues that are coming, like aflatoxin, pesticide residue, antimicrobial resistance, as well as the emerging concern like food fraud and environmental contaminant. I think these are a lot of change that is coming into the food system. And as a food safety professional, I think that there are a few trends that I would like to highlight. The first is climate change. This is really evident, it is obvious, we can see it. So the climate is changing. And this climate change has an impact on many things, including food safety. We are getting a new hazard that are changing. For example, if we think about aflatoxin, the humidity and the temperature really create an environment of the growth of the aflatoxin. I think this is something that will continue to appear. And then the second one is the antimicrobial resistance. This is also linked to the misuse of antimicrobial in the food safety, food production, and so on. And this is also something that we are seeing coming, that we need to be prepared. We need to adapt the food safety strategy to develop a risk management specific to these emerging issues. One third aspect is the food supply chain that is becoming more complex and interconnected. Now, the food products are not sold into the country only. They move through different borders, different continents. That means that there is an opportunity for cross-contamination, and it also makes more complicated the work of traceability, and this is one thing that will continue. Unfortunately, I think that we have some technologies that can support the development of traceability, more effective traceability tools to support the tracking of these emerging issues. And the last one that I would like to mention is that is the issue of food fraud. And this is something that is really coming people. It is not a direct food safety issue in some cases, that you cannot, when there is food fraud, a consumer will not necessarily get sick or die, but food fraud is something that has a big economic impact, and also people tend to put some products that are not declared in their just to reduce the cost of production. So this is something that is coming, and the conventional food control system is not well prepared to detect this food fraud and address them. So this is where I think in the future we need to have a more solution to fight the food fraud. So I think these are some of the emerging issues that I am seeing, and which also again bring me to the issue of scientific capacity development. And it is through the scientific capacity development that the African countries can prepare to face these emerging issues. Because if there is an emerging hazard pathogen, you need to generate data to be able to understand, to be able to do risk assessment, to see the impact on the consumer, and then to develop risk management measures. So this is what are the key trends that we are seeing for the next few years in the food safety landscape in Africa.
Thank you for that, Dr. Blaise. It's always good to prepare for the unexpected, because this just reminded me of the Nestle recall due to cellulite contamination, something that the industry never thought would be a source of such a big recall. We should always be prepared. So to our attendees, does anyone have a final question before I give our speakers to give us their final parting shots? Does anyone else have a question? All right. No one else has a question. Great. So what I want you to do for me is to just type in the chat what you're taking away from this conversation. You can either choose to unmute and tell us in a minute what you're taking away from this, or maybe some insights that you also have for the rest of us before we close, even as Molly and Dr. Blaise tell us their parting shots. A final word, Molly?
Thank you, Catherine. And I think we've had quite a discussion on food safety. I hope that attendees have gotten a chance to take something away from the questions, from the input from myself and Dr. Blaise. I think something that I'll just add to the question that you asked, Dr. Blaise, around emerging issues is around allergen management. Yeah. I think as food safety professionals, I think allergen management is becoming more and more important as consumers continue to demand more variety. It means now production lines must handle multiple changeovers in a single shift to be able to meet consumer demands. There's an increased trend towards contract manufacturing. All the big brands you see out here, majority of them don't manufacture their products. They hire other companies to manufacture their products. So the aspect of allergen management will become an increasingly significant area in the future to ensure that consumers unintentionally don't consume products that have cross-contamination through allergens. So it's something that as food professionals we need to do, to go back and reanalyze our risk assessment and look at opportunities of cross-contamination from personnel, from equipment, from environment. And I think also labeling regulations are also changing. I think there's a regulatory change in the codex around allergen labeling, where you're no longer just allowed to do the blanket, this product has been produced in a factory that has nuts, for example. It needs to be backed up by risk assessment. It also needs to be backed up by validation and tests. So that is something that you can all, we can all take home to ensure that allergen management still stays front and center of food safety management. I would say my parting shot would be, I think, businesses of the future and businesses that survive this ever-changing environment, businesses, especially in the food value chain, that center and prioritize food safety, not only as a compliance issue, but as a business strategic enabler. And these businesses, what will help them stay agile is embracing the food safety culture. Without culture, it will not be possible. There's no amount of documentation, there's no amount of policies that will keep our consumers safe if our culture, starting all the way from leadership to every employee within the organization, if all of them don't embrace food safety. So organizations that are future oriented will prioritize food safety, not as a compliance issue, but as a strategic business enabler. Thank you.
Thank you for those amazing insights, Molly. Joshua Kirui is telling us that eradicating, oh God, did I just lose it? Eradicating poverty will reduce food safety risks since consumers will be able to afford safe products. Congratulations to our key speakers for your insights. Alice is also telling us that her takeaway is manufacturers, consumers, and government authorities all have important roles to play in ensuring food safety. Manufacturers must produce safe and compliant products. Consumers must handle and prepare food correctly, and regulatory authorities must establish and enforce food safety requirements. Creating awareness and promoting food safety education among all stakeholders is essential to ensure a safe food supply chain and protect public health. Yes, consumer awareness is necessary. That's what you're also trying to do with our podcast, Science on Your Plate, which is aimed at consumer awareness. Dr. Blaise, your parting shot.
Yes, thank you. I would like first to thank you, Catherine, for this opportunity to have us at this platform. I would like to also say thank you to Molly for the insight she has provided and for the very good information we have shared together. And I am also thankful for the attendees who have stayed with us until the end of this webinar. I think that it is very well appreciated. So I think what I would like to say, if there is one key thing from this message, is that improving food safety is not only about knowledge, it's about implementation. During this meeting, we have learned about a lot of challenges that we have in doing food safety in Africa, but we have also learned about possible solutions. So the approach that we have should evolve. I think we should move from the traditional way of managing food safety to a science-based approach, risk-based approach. This is one thing. And second thing is to adopt the farm to fork a perspective, which means that food safety does not start at the place where you buy food. It starts at the farm level, to the processing level, to the transport, and then to the plate of the consumer. In all these stages, there are roles and responsibilities, and everybody at this stage should do his own work to make sure that the chain remain and didn't break. So I think moving forward, we should be very clear about some key things that we need to advocate for. One is strengthening institutions, improving the coordination, and focusing on consistent implementation. And we do not forget one thing that is very important is consumer awareness, food safety communication, risk communication. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blaise. It's been an honor to have you guys. I know it's been a busy week for all of you, but you've made time to come here. We do not take it for granted. Thank you, Molly, for accepting my invite. Thank you, Dr. Blaise, for accepting my invite. And also thank you for other attendees for also being here. Until next time, see you hopefully next month.
Okay.
Thank you, Annie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.